When you wake up in the morning, you're not just opening your eyes to another day. You're standing at the threshold of order and chaos once again. Every single day presents you with a decision. Will you stumble blindly into the confusion of the world, or will you orient yourself toward the highest possible good? When you begin your day, you are not merely waking up from sleep, you are standing at the doorway of choice at the edge of possibility where chaos and order once again present themselves to you. Every morning, life restarts with a subtle yet powerful challenge. Will you drift into unconscious repetition, letting the pressures and distractions of the world dictate your direction? Or will you rise with awareness, aligning yourself with something far greater than yourself? To begin the day with conscious alignment toward the highest good is to take responsibility for your orientation in life. It is not enough to simply move through the day reacting to circumstances as they arise. That approach leaves you vulnerable to the whims of chaos, tossed about by every distraction, pulled into every demand, and consumed by noise. But to deliberately center yourself in the light of Christ at the very start of your day is to anchor your being in truth, in meaning, and in stability that cannot be shaken easily by external forces. There is a reason why mornings hold such profound symbolic weight across cultures and faith traditions. The morning is the first act, the first impression, the first brushstroke on the canvas of your day. If the first moment is disordered, careless, or empty of purpose, then that tone echoes into the hours that follow. But if the first moment is deliberate, disciplined, and oriented toward the highest possible ideal, it sets a trajectory that empowers you to face everything else with strength and clarity. To reflect the light of Christ in the morning is to acknowledge that there is more to existence than your immediate concerns, more than your anxieties and your wants. It is to remind yourself that there is a structure of reality that transcends you, a hierarchy of values with Christ at its peak, and that by aligning with Him, you bring your own life into alignment with what is most true and most good. This act of conscious alignment is not about perfection, nor is it about pretending that the day ahead will be free from struggle. It is about preparation, about deciding in advance who you intend to be when the inevitable difficulties arise. When you pray in the morning, reflecting on the light of Christ, you are training your mind and your spirit to face the chaos with order, to meet pain with courage, and to resist the temptations that pull you away from responsibility and purpose. It is the cultivation of resilience at the deepest level. You are saying to yourself and to the world that your foundation is not built on the shifting sands of circumstance, but on the eternal rock of truth. This choice, repeated every morning, becomes a discipline, and discipline reshapes your entire character. Every act of orientation, no matter how small, compounds into a life lived either in light or in shadow. By turning consciously toward the highest good each day, you create momentum in the direction of growth, strength, and moral clarity. You embody responsibility not only for your own existence, but also for the lives of those around you, because when you reflect light, you inevitably illuminate others. It begins with a single decision made deliberately at the very start of the day to align yourself with the truth and reflect it through your actions, your words, and your choices that follow throughout the hours ahead. Morning prayer is not merely a ritual to be performed by habit or tradition. It is an intentional act that shapes the orientation of your entire being. When you engage in prayer at the very beginning of the day, you are not just reciting words, you are deliberately positioning yourself in relation to the highest possible good. Human beings are creatures of attention, and where you direct your attention determines the structure of your life. If your attention is captured by fear, by resentment, by distraction, then your day will unfold under the weight of those forces. But if your attention is fixed upon Christ, upon the embodiment of truth and meaning itself, then the framework of your day is built on something eternal, rather than something temporary. It is easy to underestimate the significance of prayer because it often appears invisible and intangible. The modern mind can be tempted to dismiss it as unnecessary or unproductive, as if only external actions carry value. But in reality, prayer is the most fundamental action you can take because it transforms the internal posture that drives every external action. When you pray, you are aligning your will with a greater will, your limited perspective with an infinite perspective. You are admitting that you do not possess sufficient wisdom to carry the weight of the day on your own, and you are asking to be guided by light rather than stumbling in darkness. That humility expressed every morning is not weakness but strength, because it acknowledges the truth of human limitation and the necessity of divine guidance. The very act of kneeling, of bowing your head, or of stilling your mind to address God is a symbolic declaration that you are not the ultimate authority. It is a reordering of your priorities, a recognition that there is something above you to which you must answer. And in that recognition, paradoxically, you gain freedom. Because without that orientation, you are enslaved to your impulses, to your appetites, and to the chaos of the world. Prayer frees you from the tyranny of the immediate by directing you toward the eternal. It does not erase difficulty, but it prepares you to face difficulty with courage. It does not eliminate suffering, but it provides the perspective through which suffering can be endured and transformed. To pray in the morning is to begin the day with clarity about what matters most. Before the noise of the world intrudes, before the demands of others pull you in 100 directions, you claim that quiet moment to align with truth. That moment becomes a shield against the storms that will inevitably arise. It also becomes a compass pointing you toward the kind of person you want to be. The words of prayer are not empty sounds. They are reminders to your own soul of who you are and what you are striving toward. They call you back from distraction, they ground you in responsibility, and they renew your vision for the tasks ahead. When prayer is repeated day after day, it becomes a discipline that shapes not only the morning, but the whole of life. It reorients your thinking patterns, it influences the choices you make, and it strengthens your ability to resist temptations that would otherwise lead you astray. The habit of prayer is like planting seeds in soil. Each prayer may seem small in itself, but over time, those seeds grow into a tree that provides shelter, strength, and fruit for others. By beginning every morning in prayer, you are laying a foundation of meaning that sustains you in times of joy and in times of trial, a foundation that is not shaken by the unpredictability of the world. Without reflection, the day is consumed by chaos, and that chaos does not announce itself loudly at first. It enters quietly in the form of distraction, irritation, and unchecked impulses. You wake up, and if you do not take the time to center yourself, the demands of the world immediately begin to dictate your direction. The phone buzzing, the unfinished tasks, the anxious thoughts about what might go wrong, all of these forces compete for your attention, and if you have not chosen a guiding principle at the beginning of the day, those forces win by default. Chaos thrives in the absence of orientation. But when you consciously turn your focus toward Christ, when you deliberately reflect His light before the day has a chance to pull you into confusion, order begins to emerge out of that potential chaos. Reflection is the act of looking inward and upward at the same time. It is the willingness to examine your own thoughts, your motives, and your actions against the standard of something higher. In Christian terms, that higher standard is Christ Himself, the embodiment of truth, love, and responsibility. When you reflect His light, you are not simply thinking about abstract ideas. You are holding up your life against a model of perfection. You are asking yourself, what would it mean today to act in truth rather than in deception, to respond with compassion instead of resentment, to face responsibility rather than avoid it? That reflection creates clarity, and clarity creates order. Chaos is not merely external flow. It lives within you in your impulses, your fears, your unchecked desires, and your capacity for bitterness. Left unexamined, these internal forces begin to govern your actions unconsciously. They shape how you speak to others, how you handle stress, and how you approach your responsibilities. Without reflection, you act them out blindly, and the result is disorder both within and around you. Morning reflection in the light of Christ is the antidote. It shines illumination on those inner forces so they can be recognized, disciplined, and redirected toward the good. Just as light dispels darkness, reflection dispels the confusion that grows when you live without awareness. Order does not mean rigidity. It does not mean trying to control everything or eliminate all uncertainty. Life will always contain unpredictability, suffering, and challenge. But order means orienting yourself so that you can face those realities without being consumed by them. Reflecting Christ in the morning establishes that orientation. It reminds you that suffering has meaning, that responsibility is worth carrying, and that chaos can be confronted with courage rather than avoided with denial. With that reflection, you step into the day not as a passive participant, but as someone actively choosing how to meet the challenges that come. The difference between a day lived in chaos and a day lived in order is not always dramatic in the moment. Sometimes it is as simple as responding with patience instead of anger, telling the truth when a lie would be easier, or showing kindness when indifference feels more convenient. But those small choices, accumulated over time, define the entire trajectory of your life. Reflection at the start of the day sets the conditions for those choices. It tilts you toward clarity rather than confusion, toward discipline rather than negligence, toward light rather than shadow. And by doing so consistently, you not only bring order into your own life, but also contribute to the ordering of the lives around you, because people are influenced by the way you carry yourself, by the light or the chaos you project into the world. To reflect Jesus is to embody responsibility, humility, and courage, because these are not abstract moral ideals. They are lived realities that define how a person confronts existence. Responsibility is at the core of reflection, for to see the light of Christ and to attempt to mirror it in your own life means taking ownership of the weight you carry and the influence you have on others. Life inevitably presents you with burdens, with tasks that seem unfair, with duties you did not choose. The temptation is always to avoid them, to pass them off, to pretend they do not matter. But reflecting Christ means acknowledging that every responsibility carries meaning, that to neglect even the small duties entrusted to you is to contribute to disorder. When you shoulder responsibility willingly, you imitate the one who carried the ultimate burden for the sake of others, and in doing so, you give shape and purpose to your own existence. Humility is inseparable from this reflection, because without it, responsibility becomes corrupted by pride. To reflect Christ is to recognize that your strength is not sufficient on its own, that your wisdom is limited, and that your vision is clouded. It is to admit that you need guidance, forgiveness, and renewal beyond what you can generate from within yourself. Humility is not self-contempt, it is accurate self-assessment. It is seeing yourself as you truly are, finite, fallible, yet also capable of growth when aligned with something greater. In humility, you avoid the arrogance that distorts responsibility into domination or self-righteousness. You act not for your own glory, but as a servant of truth and love, aware that you are called to live as a reflection, not as the source of light itself. Courage is the necessary companion to both responsibility and humility, because to live in reflection of Christ is to confront suffering and opposition without retreat. The world is full of difficulties, both personal and collective, and fear constantly threatens to paralyze you. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in alignment with truth despite fear. When you reflect Jesus, you are called to face pain rather than flee from it, to endure trials without surrendering to bitterness, and to speak truth when silence would be safer. Courage transforms suffering into an opportunity for meaning, because in confronting what is hard, you demonstrate that the light within you is stronger than the darkness pressing against you. These three, responsibility, humility, and courage, form a pattern of existence that reflects the life and teaching of Christ. They are not optional virtues but essential disciplines if you wish to live with integrity and purpose. To embody responsibility is to say yes to the burdens that give life meaning. To embody humility is to remain grounded in truth about yourself and dependent on grace. To embody courage is to confront the inevitable suffering of life with faith rather than despair. Together, they create a posture that not only transforms your own life but radiates outward, influencing everyone you encounter. When you begin the day reflecting on these qualities, you prepare yourself to live them out in practice. Reflection becomes action, and action becomes character. By carrying responsibility faithfully, by walking humbly, and by standing courageously, you become a living testimony of the light you reflect. Others see in you not perfection, but an honest striving toward what is highest, and that striving itself becomes a source of hope. To reflect Jesus is therefore not merely to believe in him, but to embody his qualities in the concrete struggles of everyday life, shaping both yourself and the world through the light you allow to shine through you.